The 411 Live.
Where you can learn about issues that affect us every day. State of world, 411 Live.
Real people, real talk.
Made to help people in our community in every way. For your girl, 411 Live.
My guest has endured a crippling lifestyle. One, she says in her book, Don't Rush to Get Old, was designed to destroy her destiny. She was a drug and alcohol addicted call girl, molested as a toddler, raped as a teenager. She's also an overcomer because her present looks nothing like her past. As she would say, but God. Hello, everyone. I'm Beverley Taylor. This is the 411 Live, Real People, Real Talk. And my guest is April Bentley. And she's joining us from the car because her son has a baseball game. So, hey, April.
Hey, Beverly.
Thank you for joining me. Now, we will talk about, your experiences, your deliverance, your organization, and how your organization is helping young girls in preventing some of the lifespan. And, of course, your singing ministry. You've got so much going on. But first of all, when you look at your life and you look at all of it as a whole, are you overwhelmed?
Oh my God, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I still sometimes stand in the mirror amazed. Because I know people that have dealt with that, have experienced not even a fraction of what I've experienced, and they're still extremely broken, downward
Right.
in the spiral. And I'm like, wow, okay, God. It's all God, because honestly, I couldn't do it in my own strength. I couldn't smile. I couldn't go day to day. I couldn't engage with people. It's a lot of things that I could not do had it not have been for the Lord. And that's just the truth.
Yeah. I was thinking about the first was still working at Fox 6 News as a reporter and anchor, and I was doing a story on sex trafficking, and I interviewed you and I think three other women, and you told me your story, some of your story, and it stayed with me. It really did. And then I thought about our paths crossed again when I did a story concerning the organization that you had formed, Rubies.
Yeah.
And, and talking to some of the young girls who were taking part in that program. Tell me what Rubies stands for.
Rubies is rare, unique, Christ.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about that organization. Refresh my memory here.
Yeah, so Rubies was designed, of course, with the youth in mind. And we focus on identification, awareness, and prevention of sex trafficking. We work with all who identify as female, age 11 and up. And our goal is to just reach, teach, explore. We want to be able to reach all those who are vulnerable, who are targeted on the targeted market for sex trafficking, and teach them how to be aware, how to protect themselves, how to identify what it looks like, what it sounds like, even peer-to-peer trafficking, how to report any suspicious behavior anonymously so they don't have to feel like they have to put themselves out there. And then, to allow the children to explore beyond the four walls of their community. It's so important that our children have an opportunity to venture out and see things that they would not see just stuck in the four walls of their community. So we take a lot of cultural outings and we do a lot of great things that they would have never thought that they absolutely enjoy.
That is wonderful. And I remember when I did the story and I was talking to parents of these girls, and they were so grateful for this program. And talking to some of the girls, and they had experienced instances where they were able to identify someone
Absolutely.
trying to, reel them in for sex trafficking. But they knew the signs and they recognized it because they were going through the Rubies program. And I'm sure
Absolutely.
you've got stories like that, right?
Oh, I have some great stories. And I'm just so, it's an honor to be able to pour into the young ladies, but not only that, know that it sticks.
Mm.
Know that it sticks, because there's a lot of things that, we teach our children, but there's a quote that I always use. It's not what they're taught, it's what they learn that makes the difference.
Right.
So once they learn it, they learn the importance of using what they're being taught. That makes all the difference in the world. And some of the girls, in particular, I just had one of the young ladies who is one of our alumni. She's in college right now. And she took a trip from college with her friend, her friend's friend, and her friend's friend's friend. So it's 4 young ladies all together, and they took a trip over to Miami. And day one, they were supposed to be getting a tour by a guy that her friend's friend knew.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy picks them up, and he's in a large SUV with other gentlemen in the car. She said once they got in, he was driving, doing about 100 miles an hour, just really flying, just really reckless on the road. She tried to let the window down, and she recognized that there were child locks on the vehicle. So she said, "Can I let the window down?" And he said, "What do you need windows down for? I got air." So he turns on the air. But she said the whole time he watched her through the rear view. She said she just had the worst feeling. And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to meet with my brother. I'm going to have my brother meet us, and 2 of you all can get in there with him, and the other 2 can stay with us." And she's like, "No, this doesn't sound right already." But she said, "I remember Miss April said, if you think it's not right, if something feels off, begin to plan a way of escape. Don't talk about it." I'm just a very direct young lady. When I talk to these girls, I say, don't talk about it, be about it. You don't have to give an indication that you're going to do anything. Just plan the way of escape and then execute. So she got her phone. She said, "I looked at the Uber app, and I had my finger on this Uber app." And believe it or not, she educated me about Uber, because I never drove the Uber. I never took the Ubers. But she said, you push the Uber and it'll tell you how far the nearest person is to you. So they know your location when you push this Uber button. So when they pull up, she noticed there were 2 vehicles out there. And the first thing she said is, "That doesn't look like a brother." And so the guy said, "Oh, yeah, it's you. You're going to be the one, huh? You're going to be the one that's going to give me the problems. You're the smart one, huh?" And so she said, "I'm whatever you say." She said, "I remember you said never become combative, never go back and forth with them, because you don't know." And when that car stopped, she pushed that Uber app, and it showed 3 minutes away. And she said to the young lady who was next to her, not her friend, but her friend's friend, "Okay, the Uber's coming, and when it comes, we're getting in this Uber." So when they pull up, this vehicle full of guys, 2 vehicles full of men, and this Uber app pulls up in 3 minutes. They open the door, she jumps out. She says, "We're getting in this Uber, and you're getting in this Uber too," with her friend. And her friend's like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "You don't know what's going on, but I know what's going on." And the guys were just so caught off guard, because they didn't expect that to begin with. Now, could that have been a different situation?
Mm-hmm.
Was it necessarily going to be trafficking? No, but it definitely was not something good going to happen in the end of that. And she said it was about 2-minute debate, and all of the girls ended up getting in but one. She said the main girl said, "I'm not going." And she said, they were just like, "You got to get in, you got to get in." And everybody got in. And she eventually came in the next day, and they didn't talk about it. I guess they kind of had a little strain or what have you, but all the other girls got in. And she said, "Miss April, I know that what I did saved our lives." And that, I had her come in, and she shared that story with the students at a girls' night in, and the girls sat at her feet and ate like, wow. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Rubies, I am so glad you're doing this. April, I think what is that makes you so successful with that program is you're teaching what you know. You're not teaching something you read in a book. You're not teaching something you heard from somebody else. These are life experiences, and you draw that expertise from that. And so the kids, they've got to be drawn to you because you know what you're talking about.
Yep. Yep.
So let's talk about some of your life experience, and to the degree that you feel comfortable with. So you be a guide to that. But I was mentioning in the introduction that you had been assaulted at a very, very young age to begin with. And you detail a lot of this in your book, Don't Rush to Get Old. So kind of tell us a little bit about your story.
So I can start right, the book. It's interesting how when I heard the Lord say to write my story, I thought it was just something I need to get off my chest.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to write, and I'm not a good typer, right? So I'm like, but I'm typing and I'm typing. And I mean, all the memories of all the things that I even suppressed and things that I had just completely blocked out began to just overtake me. And there were moments when I had to just stop and pause. Because that very first memory when I was 2, I could see the basement, I could see my tea set, I could see everything. I could see my mom and everybody partying over there. And I could see it's just so detailed how the memory was. My mother came in and she said, oh, it's time to go to bed. And she picked me up and she said, we're going to pray. This is something that she did. She prayed with us often and she read from the Bible. She didn't take us to church because she didn't believe in church, but she believed that there was God and God was always listening. And he was going to be there to aid and assist when you needed him. And so I remember praying and she laid me in the middle of my brothers. I have an older brother and a younger brother, and I was 2. So my oldest brother is 2 years older and my younger brother was just a baby. And I remember that relative who came and picked me up, and it would often happen, but I remember that first memory that God had given me when he picked me up and he took me right, literally within feet of my mom, from her to the next bedroom, where he began to perform oral sex on me. And that went on so long in my life because he would say, you my favorite niece. You know I love you. You're my favorite. Don't tell anybody. It's our secret. You can get anything from your uncle. And that was the beginning of it all. I remember just feeling, I can't really explain my feelings at that age. I just knew that it was wrong.
Yeah.
And even though I couldn't talk about it, I just did it. I just knew that it was wrong. And it went on and on. And at the age of, 5 and 6, you have your cousins, your older cousins who were trying to touch on you and feel on you in the bed. And then, my 11 at the 10-year-old, my mother had a friend who was a very wealthy woman who would always ask if I could spend the night. And my mother would say, no, you don't have any daughters. You have 3 sons. And she'd say, I know, but that's why I want a daughter so bad. Let me just take her out and shop and, treat her out. And she had this big old pool in her backyard. And I remember my mother finally said yes one day. And she took me to the mall and bought me all these pretty clothes and bathing suits and took me back to the house where her sons were. She had 3 sons at the time. And then we all got into our bathing suits. And I remember she was like, here, try this on. And I was going to go in the bathroom and go, so you can try it on right in front of me. And I said, well, my mom doesn't let me see her naked. And she doesn't want any, she doesn't see me naked like that. She goes, oh, that's what girls do when they're alone. It's okay. So I was like, oh, I'm 10. I'm thinking, well, maybe my mom just don't know, right? So Here I am changing in front of this woman. And little did I know, this woman was videoing it. She had a video on a tripod that was, watching me. She took a lot of pictures that day. I just was a kid. I didn't even, think there was anything wrong with that. But that night, and she had this really big house. That night, she said, well, you can sleep in the room with me. And I was like, oh, okay, because she has this fancy room, And I remember waking up and that woman was literally on top of me as if I was a man or she was a man and I was a woman. And she was videoing that. And that memory was completely erased. Erased. The trauma of that, it set so far in the back of my mind when I began to write. When that came back, that memory came back, I remember just gasping for air, just like, whoa. I remember that. And a lot of those things that happened, I sent a copy of my book to my mother and my dad. They were the first 2 copies I sent them. And I remember both of them calling me and like, that never happened. Why did you not say that? When did this happen? That's not true. They were just so in a place. And I described everything in detail. And at that moment, they knew. And it happened. I was just this little girl that was trapped. I was trapped in this world. And no one heard my voice. No one saw me. I was invisible.
Wow. I remember Now there are a lot of other things like when you were 14, I think.
Yeah. At 14, I was raped,
Yeah.
impregnated by the rapist. The rapist lived across the street. And I remember that was before they had the, where you would have to be a lifelong registry now for sex offenders. They didn't have that out, but I developed so quickly at 13. I woke up with a 36C sitting on my chest. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And I began to become really self-conscious about what I looked like because I went from this little stick figure to like this woman in my body. But my face remained childlike, yet many approached me. And you could clearly look and see that I was a child. And the man that raped me, my mother, she just knew. She said, I don't like the way he looks at you. He was 25. And, today we'd say he was a good looking guy, well groomed and mannerable. Hi, speaking all the time. And my mother said, there's something about him I don't like. Stay away from him. And that I didn't listen to the voice of my mother when I was standing at that bus stop that morning going to school with a friend. And he pulls up in the old school and he's like, you need a ride? And I'm like, no. And she was like, girl, let's get a ride. I'm like, no, my mama told me to stay away from him, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, it's freezing out here. Y'all better come on, get a ride. I'm taking y'all straight to school. She was like, what are you going to do with both of us? And I'm like, probably nothing. Okay. So he's got, the old school with the long seat.
Mm-hmm.
So I open that door and I slide in. And as soon as I slide in, he pulls off. And that door was swinging and she was standing there. And I had never given myself to anyone. So that was a very traumatic experience because he kept asking me over and over, are you a virgin? I was like, I don't know, because I didn't know what that meant. And once that act was over, he was like, oh, you were a virgin. And there was all of this blood that I went on. He took me to school and I went through that side door and I sat in the class just sitting there and everybody was like, clearly something's wrong with April. I didn't even know. That's how the event was. It was such a blackout moment for me that I didn't know that there was blood on me. And I went in and my mother blamed me. She said it was my fault because I didn't listen to her.
Oh,
and at the time, my mother was spiraling out of control. And so we were going this way and we were in one house. But I was pregnant. And I remember just, praying and praying to God, please, God, I'm a baby. I'm a child. I don't need a baby. I don't want a baby. I don't.
wow.
And at 5 months, the heart stopped. And that was the end of that.
Okay. We're going to stop. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and resume this riveting story. Stay with us. You're listening to the 411 Live.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Let 211 be your guiding light for help with food, healthcare, and other resources.
211, how can I help you?
Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211, get connected, get help.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello and welcome back to the 411 Live. I'm talking to April Bentley, and she was in the middle of her life story. And we just heard the horrific saga of being raped at 14. Let me go down to, I remember when I did the story with you, it was talking to you about this friend, this woman who was almost like a big sister, a best friend kind of thing, but really in actuality was a groomer, right?
Yeah.
So things were a little rocky at home at this point, and she was just that person that you could kind of go to, that you could trust.
Yeah.
And I remember your phrase. And when I called you to tell you I wanted you on this podcast, I mentioned that phrase that she used to you saying, "Do you trust me?" So I know this is a long story and kind of getting it short because we have a lot to talk about, but that was really a pivotal episode for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me again, she was kind of became that best friend, and then she had something for you to do.
So at this point in my life, after the rape, I was so ashamed to go to school. I refused to go to school. So I would walk out that door, but if I had to walk through the doors of the school, I was literally walking right out because I was so embarrassed and ashamed that everybody knew that I had been raped. And so I started skipping out. And I found there was a place that a lot of the kids would go. And I met this woman there, and she was 25. And I would always say the same thing because it was just the truth. She was a life-size Barbie. She was the most beautiful lady I had ever seen in real life. And everything about her, I just admired. So I was so drawn to her because I was a little Barbie collector. I had all the Barbie everything. So I was going to be Barbie too when I got older, right? And I meet this lady, and she immediately recognized that, I would come, but I wouldn't come with a bunch of kids. I would come by myself because I knew that's where they were going and just kind of hang out. And she introduced herself to me, and she said, "Hey, you remind me of myself when I was your age. How old are you? About 13, 14?" And I was like 14. And she was like, "Wow, you're so beautiful." And she was saying all the things that I, wanted to hear. And she even said that, "I'm going to take you under my wing. You can call me your big sister." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, I got a big sister now. I never had a sister. So, we kind of all want that sister when you don't have one. You always want what you don't have. And so I remember I used to go over there, and she would ask me, "Do you drink?" And I said, "Drink like what?" Liquor. I was like, no, I don't drink. My mother would kill me. She's like, "Oh, well, you could drink over here." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she asked me, "Do you smoke?" And I was like, "No." "Smoke what?" "No, I don't smoke, "Well, you can smoke over here. You can do anything you want to do over here." So at that point, I remember just really I just wanted to be up under her. I was, to me, winning, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could do whatever I wanted to do. I was 14. I'd go over there. She'd put a little makeup on me. And one day, her grooming was so subtle. It was so subtle. She'd say things like, "You can have anything you want. Man will give you anything. Girls are going to be so jealous of you. You'll never have any friends. I wouldn't even try to make friends with girls. They're just going to be jealous of you." Planting those seeds.
Yeah.
"I bet you your friends look at you a certain way. They be jealous. Look at you." And she'd spin me around and show me how pretty I was and how built I was. And all of that. And I was eating that up, and she'd tell me what to say and not to say when a man approached me, or, "You want to have a man, you get this and that, you get whatever you want." And one day I remember showing up, and she was sitting on the floor, and she was a high yellow woman. So all of her emotions would show on her face, right? And she was sitting on the floor, and I remember her nose was really red, and she was like very distraught. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "No, I'm not okay. I'm about to lose my house. I don't have any food. My lights are going to get turned off. I don't have any money." And I was just like, oh man, it's like panic came over me. And I thought, oh, I wish there was something I could do. And she stood up and said, "There is." And I was like, oh. And I remember to this day, it was so clear. I thought, first thing went through my mind, I could steal some meat out of my mom's deep freezer. Everybody had deep freezers back then, right? I could bring her some food. And she said, "You know the guy?" But before I could get that out, she said, "You know the guy that I cook for sometime down the street?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Yeah, he said he'll pay you $200 if you make him breakfast." And I was like, $200? And she said, "Yeah. You know how to make eggs, don't you?" And I said, "Well, yeah." "You know how to make bacon?" I was like, "Well, yeah, that's all you have to do." And I said, "Oh." I said, but that's a grown man. And she said, you trust me, don't you? Now, she had never given me a reason not to trust her. And I just remember saying, yeah, because I did trust her. I did trust her. And she said, that's all you have to do. And it's 8:00 in the morning when I'm supposed to be at school. She said, well, here, let me get you dressed. And I was like, well, what's wrong with what I have on? Well, you got to look pretty. That's why he's going to pay you the $200. So she changed my clothes and she put me on these red high heel shoes, this blue jean miniskirt, and this red lipstick that every time I see the image, I remember the first thing I said, I look like a hooker. And she said, no, you don't. You look so pretty. And I was like, I do? She was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's the word hooker back then, right? Yeah. And I said, well, you're going to go with me? And she said, yeah. So literally, I'm holding her hands because my knees are buckling and I'm walking down this alley at 8:30, 9:00 in the morning with her holding my hand to this man's house. And I was so nervous. I mean, I could just feel that whole moment right now. And I got to the back door. We were there and she knocked at the door and he opens the door and she had let my hand go. And I was looking at him and I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy's like my dad's age. He looks like my dad, and he grabs my hand. And I look over and she was already walking away and he pulls me in. And that was the first time, that was the beginning of the downward spiral for my life. Because even though everything that happened, I was such a child. I was such a child in my brain that I really believed she still needed this money and she had no idea what this guy did to me. I went back, I told her, I'm crying. And she goes, what's wrong? And I'm telling everything. And she goes, oh my God. And she embraces me. She's like, that'll never happen again, ever. Here, have a drink. And on that moment, I'm drinking some white liquor on an empty stomach. Not shortly after, I'm throwing my guts up. And then she introduces me to freebase cocaine.
Wow.
And from then on, she was like the puppet master until that day she disappeared. But at that point, I was already stuck in my mind.
Yeah. We're almost out of time, but I want to mention the fact that, and there's so much more to this story. And so I encourage people to get your book, Don't Rush to Get Old. And so you went through all of this, call girl, whole bit, addicted to drugs and stuff, but you came out of it. And you wrote a song called and this song to me, I mean, there's only so much space you can put in a song, but to me, it told the whole story.
Absolutely.
Play a little excerpt, not the whole thing, but enough for people to get to wet their whistle, so to speak, and they can, of course, listen to the whole thing themselves. So let's pause for that.
Amen.
Now, this isn't your ordinary gospel, but it's the gospel, the gospel of my life. You see, I didn't choose this life. It was given to me. But I gave it to Christ. And now, I'm free. It started way back when I was 2 years old. My body, I was too young to discover. And on those late nights, something wasn't right. Someone else lay there with me under the cover. As I grew, I knew that this thing was attaching itself onto me. In secret, I'm feeling on myself, touching everybody else. Lord, why did this happen to me? What do I do? Somebody help me. I'm just a little girl trapped in this big world. Somebody's gotta come for me. Oh, pray. That's what they tell me. So I'm down on my knees, begging, Lord, please save me. Yeah. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. No longer am I chained and bound, trapped in this world of sin so deep within. When He came, He turned my life around. Who the Son sets free is free indeed. I'm much better than I was before. I surrendered my life and gave it to Christ the moment He knocked at my door. And I'm fine. And by the time I was 14 and lost all hope, dropped out of high school, strung out on dope. Lost my identity in a grown man's bed. Thoughts of suicide in my head. I never knew these things that happen was designed to make me lose my mind. I'm just a baby, but there's a baby inside of me. Lord, feels like I'm running out of time. What do I do?
Okay, that is April doing I'm Free. And you can hear the whole song on YouTube. And it's a beautiful song, so I encourage you to do that. April, there's so much to your story and so much that you're doing now. Songwriter, artist, and, with Rubies and all of those things. And you do public speaking because so many people need to be aware of it. There are people who live in their homes and they go, well, my children, they don't know anything about this. This wouldn't touch them. They have blinders on. So you are doing a lot of public speaking. So if someone wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way?
So if you're looking for a speaker, you can contact me through April Bentley Ministries at gmail.com and request that speaker. I speak on topics as a lived experience expert. So I don't do a lot of sex trafficking survivor speaking engagements, only as a lived experience expert. Also with sexual assault or sexual violation and abuse. So I speak on those subjects. They can reach me there. They can also reach me at 414-502-8621 if you want to call and you prefer to speak to someone.
Okay, that sounds good. And your book, is it on Amazon?
Oh, no. I have all the publishing rights to my own book, and right now you can get that on Experience the Ministry of aprilbentley.com. That is my website. You can go directly to that and order directly from me. I'll send you a nice little personalized letter, and I'll sign that book as well. So you can order the book, the music, and anything else. We have a lot of different things on the website that you can order.
Excellent. April, I hate that our time went away so fast. Just so quickly, and because there's so much to your story, but I thank you so much for being so open, so transparent, and sharing this with us. What you do with the teenagers and nurturing them and helping them explore and be aware and, life. It's wonderful, and the girls are learning so much, and the parents are so grateful. So, I encourage people to really track you down on that one because that is something that would be wonderful for their daughters. So again, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely,
it's a pleasure.
It is a pleasure. Thank you, Beverly. Have a wonderful day.
You too. And thank you for joining us for another edition of the 411 Live. Remember, we're a nonprofit organization, so if you're so inclined to help us out, go to our website, the411live.org. Until next time, I'm Beverley Taylor. This is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. If you would like to check out past episodes, there are many ways. Go to your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Like and watch us on Facebook. Watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, go to our website, the411live.org.